Well, it looks like the jobs report came in and it was excellent. So from a couple different angles. So markets are going up, and also along with it, silver and oil. Oil actually, as I speak, is just below the $100. It's like $99 and 90 something cents on the WTI, which is, there's always a lot of resistance right around that $100 mark too, and it may, you know. I think it's going to break through it, to tell you the truth, because there's some thought that, with this deal coming up at Iran, that Israel might do a first strike maybe in this spring. I don't know. Interestingly enough, if you looked on the world stage, one of the countries out there that has, well, it's the second highest percentage per GDP for military spending. It's actually Saudi Arabia, and because of the tensions between the two Muslim groups, so if there's something that happens in over there, it's going to be a hell of a spike in oil prices, that's for sure. Even though oil prices have, in other words, oil supply has actually been very well. Its productivity has come on very strong in the United States and Canada and Mexico, and it's inside of about 2 years. And if you take the aggregate of North America and what North America uses, we're not going to even be importing any oil, but there will be a major oil spike if there's a flare-up in the Middle East. And, it's been talked about so long, but, I always said that's going to be the catalyst for the major push upward in silver and gold prices. Now the markets look good today because of the jobs report, but I'm not 100% sure. They looked at the jobs report in two different ways, and there's two different measurements, and some of it's done by the Census Board, but some cases I'm not 100% sure if those numbers are good, because in a lot of cases the people who lost jobs are taking jobs that are much less pay. So maybe, that's what's going on too, so it's not like the economy itself is doing that great. Also, I want to point out, some of the things like common sense with fiscal silver. If people don't remember, actually, J.P. Morgan already got fined for not segregating funds from the clients, just like, MF Global did. They got fined for that. And I assume there's a hell of a lot more of that going on because, we don't see exactly their books. We don't see them exactly on all these too big to fail type people. So, there may be a lot more double counting going on where the money isn't there. So, this is where when I looked at that stuff, when I talked about, when they talk about the derivatives bubble, and I talked about some things where I think where it's coming from, there's always and I was exposed to some of this. There's some of these private placement platform trades go on that are closed to the public, and they seem to trade up an asset, and somebody will walk off with a lot of money, but the other side of it is never really like a person. I almost think it's sitting on the books as a liability someplace. That's why I think there's a lot of shenanigans going on in how the banks are actually counting up what they have as assets. I think there is a lot of double counting going on, especially in gold, because we did see this. Germany wanted their gold back, and guess what? They're not getting their gold back for so many years, and they wanted 10% of their gold back this year, and they didn't get 10% of their gold back this year. It's ridiculous, So there's probably a hell of a lot of double counting out there. So that's why I think, there is going to be a major crisis in the banking system. Something else too, Bitcoin. Well, I shouldn't laugh. Bitcoin got slammed today because the biggest exchange out there got basically closed down, where you couldn't withdraw money, so it went down to $180. I'm not too keen on Bitcoin. I think the electronic currencies are the wave of the future, although I don't like that concept, to tell you the truth, because it's probably leading, electronic currencies are all great in one way, but it's they still are traceable. plain old paper cash, even by the U.S. government, paper cash really is not traceable. People say they want electronic currencies like Bitcoin or Dogecoin or whatever, or Litecoin, because they want, to be incognito, but they are traceable. So, that's the other contention, like, because there always is a trace. The only thing that isn't traceable, and it's quite obvious, is, well, silver coins aren't really, and also even the paper cash. So, people are, I think, what's going to happen is when there's a currency crisis, I think actually Bitcoins was set up as a ploy to get people adjusted to, a cashless society. I personally think that's what it is. A lot of people disagree with that, but I don't really think I don't think it was set up as innocently as people think. Now, the one thing I don't like specifically about Bitcoin, I'm kind of digressing here, is that it has a lot of competition now. I mean, there's a load of coins out there that came out, I mean, I don't even know all of them. Dogecoin, Litecoin, or whatever the hell it is out there, the Quark coin, that have come out within the last year, less than a year. There's like 50-something different electronic currencies that just came out that are competing with Bitcoin. I talk about demand destruction. I mean, God, somebody could just make another electronic currency, and there you go, right? It's not, whereas with gold or silver, there's so much that, it may be in the earth, but, you got to, it's got to be economically feasible to get out of the earth, which means it costs so much money to get out of the earth, which means it has that much worth, right? So, I know there's arguments with the electronic, but I'm like, the mining cost, the electricity, and all this kind of stuff. But to me, it reminds me of fluff. Something else coming up in the electronic world too. It looks like by 2015, or somewhere, not beginning of the year, maybe by late 2015, say October 2015, Visa and MasterCard are going to get rid of the magnetic strips on the cards, and they're going to be going with a microchip and a pin. They already have this in Europe, actually. It's probably a better idea, but if you talk about, the cashless society with the chip society, well, it's pretty much already here. It's not going to take too much to go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 to step 4, where all money is electronic. And, I see this actually as a danger, big time, because, all the problems, the human element that has actually caused the problem in the banking system, whereas, 1 basis point, 1/100th of 1%, let's not even talk about the 1%, let's talk about the 1/100th of 1%, extracts so much wealth out of the system and put so little back. It's the banking system and the finance system has allowed this to happen. So it's like, it's with electronic money, it's going to be, if we go to all electronic everything, it's going to be the same way. I mean, so I don't see any kind of improvement there. So, maybe we will have a big, I don't think it's a maybe. We will have a very, very big run up in the metals, the precious metals, and there will super spike. But, afterwards, we're probably going to have this global reset. We're going to have a global currency that's electronic, and that is going to be screwed up itself. And it's going to take some years before that implodes upon itself with all the bullshit that goes on in corruption. And because, we have seen this, why would it be any different under a global currency if, it happens under all the individual nations? In other words, the problem's not going to be solved. We're actually going to have a global reset, a global currency. The same kind of garbage is going to happen until that fails. And that's going to be some years down the road. I don't know how many years, but it's going to be some years down the road. That's it's alluding to some of the predictions in the Bible, so it's probably what's going to happen. What we're seeing right now is minor. So anyway, what I'm expecting though is this month and into next month, because we're probably going to, with oil jumping up like the way it is today, if it solidly gets over 100. The metals should still be doing well. They should still be doing well. And if I think the real catalyst that's going to bring down the equities is going to be the same type of event that happened like in August of 2011, where the debt, U.S. debt, gets downgraded by somebody else, maybe Moody's, or they talk about it, or whatever, they issue warnings, and that is what's going to cause gold to go up, because this debt problem has not gone away. They just shoved it off to the future. And I talked about people like in the government, like we keep re-electing these same people all the time, but it looks like the real problem where the major media makes it look like there's some people in the Congress that are trying to force the issue on this and that. Well, there's some people in Congress that were elected by knowledgeable Americans that are saying that the government needs to balance its budget. They got to stop. They got to reduce the debt. They got to get rid of the excess spending and all this type of stuff. And the major media is looking at it like they're just a problem. Well, they're not the problem. They're actually the solution. And it's like that is these problem Congress people that the major media calls them are going to be the ones that are probably going to cause basically maybe a shutdown or something like that, or where we have a debt downgrade or something like that. And that's where I think gold and silver. There's going to be a financial crisis coming up here pretty soon. We've had one. We should have had one in October 2013, but like I said, they just pushed the problems off. But it's like they're running out of steam to push these problems off. That's what I'm saying, and I don't see where it's going to come about. But in the long range, when there is a currency collapse and everything, they're going to come out with electronic money, everything, and it's going to be the same old kind of. It may be good in the beginning. But it's still going to be subjected to the same kind of garbage and same kind of problems we got today. It's like the only solution there actually is old school all the way, and they're not going to do it until there's something really, really bad where it's actually a matter of survival or not survival. So, but anyway, it looks like Bitcoins is in trouble again because of I don't know, they shut down the exchange for a while. Nobody can get out their money, the big exchange, so it went down $180. I think they're in trouble because they got a lot of competition now, for one. And I know like about the thing where you got to download this file, and after another year or two, it's going to be like you're going to need like a terabyte of hard drive space to download the file to use Bitcoins or something. But they got a lot of competition. They got like a lot of different competition out there. The case with silver and gold, there isn't that much competition out there. I mean, you might have, I don't know, copper coins or palladium or whatever the hell it is, but, silver and gold pretty much have been good mainstays. And if you use electronic money that's backed by silver and gold, may not be elastic enough, but the thing is, if it's if you allow the elasticity, whatever, to go so far, and then, you move it back and forth and there's a limit, basically, it would still work. You could have like a hybrid system where you could say, 1 ounce of silver, you know what I'm saying, there's the backing of the money, but, it always takes this, it takes internal vigilance, and once you let the freaking same kind of people run the system again, like if we have a global reset or whatever the hell it is, I guarantee the same kind of jerks are going to be running the system, and it might work for a while, but eventually the whole damn thing's going to cave in upon itself again, because they'll do the same kind of garbage. It's just the nature of the beast, man. These guys are crooks. That's all that goes down to, man. Like I said, MF Global and JP Morgan, both of them. MF Global failed because they made the big bet. And, this tells you, like, when John Corzine made that bet, I mean, this guy wasn't stupid. He didn't try to lose. He was trying to win. And, what happens is when you're making bets like that, I think there's a lot of bets out there that have been lost, and they got ways to cover them up by double counting on a lot of different things. There's a lot of ways you can hide assets into this entity, that entity, count it this way, count it that way. just like when they lease gold, right? It's like multiplying the supply of gold left and right. It's bullshit, right? It's bullshit. So, that's why I talk, when we look at this banking system, these guys on the top are crooks, and, when it does freaking reset, I think we're more or less going to wind up with the same kind of garbage all over again because, until it really goes back to the old ways where you're just freaking using coins. Just think about it, Just think about it. It's not so much that you got to have, because in other words, a lot of things that are going on right now in the economy are just all totally debt based to the max. And what that's doing is encouraging people not to produce. That's what it's doing. It's like when you're not having a debt-based economy, it encourages savings and production. But what we got going on here is a debt-based economy, and that is herein lies the problem. So it's like when people roll up their sleeves and they're productive and they work, all the problems go away. That's exactly what it is. And even if we get into this catastrophic debt and all this kind of garbage comes about, even if the problems seem insurmountable, like I said before, you can make your own situation by your attitude. It doesn't mean you just dream but if you have the right kind of can-do attitude, positive can-do attitude, you will overcome the problems. And that's just what it is. That's why I don't really like some of the guys that are out there pushing the fear button too much because they're not helping a lot. But you got to have some fear. Yeah, I know that. You got to have some fear, but you don't want to be like totally 100% fearful all the time. So anyway, over and out. Looks like the jobs report has caused the markets to rebound, but I don't expect them to stay rebounded because I think what's going to happen in the future is that there's going to be some major budget fights coming up, and there's going to be talk about downgrade again, and that's what's going to knock the markets down a lot. And just look at the common sense with the PE ratios and all that stuff. They shouldn't be this high. They shouldn't be this high. They'll reset, then they'll put on QE5 to infinity, and then the markets will go back up again. That's what I expect.